Hello and welcome to a new episode of the Cradle News Roundup, your one-stop shop for all news West Asia. My name is Esteban Carrillo. I am the head of news for the Cradle, and as usual, I'm joined by my colleagues, content creator and writer for the Cradle, Karim Shami, and columnist and editor for the Cradle, Sharmin Narwani. Okay, so something very interesting has been happening over the past several weeks in reality, although the reports have just started now to come out. And it's Israeli soldiers are being targeted by criminal complaints all over the world. These pro-Palestinian organizations, in particular the Hind Rajab Foundation, a Belgium-based NGO named after the 6-year-old Hind Rajab, who was horribly murdered in the Gaza Strip last year. They have been working with lawyers in several countries to file criminal complaints against Israeli reservists who are on leave, who are vacationing. The most recent of which, apparently, this morning in Thailand. Thai courts are now looking into an unnamed Israeli soldier there who committed war crimes in Gaza. Over the weekend, a Brazilian federal court ordered a police investigation into, again, another Israeli soldier accused of committing war crimes. Hundreds of lawyers in Chile issued a statement on Friday as well, calling for another Israeli soldier. So, according to Israeli media, this has been happening all over the place. They're talking about dozens of countries, at least 50 criminal complaints. In many cases, the soldiers have evaded investigation before it even began. The Tel Aviv has been mobilizing its resources to provide them with legal aid or just to smuggle them out of the country. This is what the words that Israeli media is using. In the case, for example, of the Brazilian Brazilian investigation, the soldier fled into neighboring Argentina, and we all know that Argentina is a country that its current government stands fully in support of the genocide in Gaza. So it's very, very interesting again what is happening, because all of a sudden, Israeli soldiers cannot feel safe anywhere. And just one last thing before I let you guys go on. The evidence that is being presented comes from their own social media accounts, from their own Instagram, from their own Facebook, their own whatever platform, because these soldiers are apparently posting as many as 1 million posts a day from Gaza and from Lebanon of themselves committing war crimes. So, this is really a case of chickens coming home to roost.
I I don't know how the Israeli army has let that continue for 16 months. I mean, especially after the ICC and ICJ rulings, they have to understand. I mean, these soldiers, and of course, it completely defeats their argument that they're the most moral army in the world. I mean, these pictures show us the absolute opposite. You'd think a professional army would, first of all, not want their troops to look unprofessional on the field. But second to that, and I think even more important, is location capabilities. These guys are taking pictures of the field, showing themselves, the enemy potentially where they are. I've never understood that, and certainly after the genocide case was filed by South Africa, that would be an instant, excuse or reason to stop this activity. And truthfully, Esteban, that number you cited that the Israeli government provided, that there are 1 million such social media posts by active Israeli troops in the
Per day.
battlefield, is astounding. Per day. Like, it's counterproductive for the Israelis in every way. I have no beef with it because it's the evidence we're going to need for criminal cases and genocide cases, legal cases, etc. But why would they do this?
I think, I feel like the Israeli army has been acting in such a way, with such impunity for the past year and a half, almost year and a half at this point, that this is really probably the least of their concerns at the end of the day, right? It seems like they are completely preoccupied with simply eradicating the Palestinians in Gaza, and they're providing their soldiers with every opportunity to feel good about it, right? We just reported at the Cradle a couple of weeks ago that the Israeli army built a resort for its soldiers in Gaza, in which they have everything from an espresso machine to a masseuse to video games and whatever else, just so they can unwind, right, from crushing people dead and alive all over Gaza using the excavators. So I think allowing them to post these images is just also part of this stance that Israel has taken of complete impunity and also of celebrating what is happening in Gaza. Because remember, internally in Israel, there's hardly any opposition to what's actually happening in Gaza. You don't see anti-genocide protests in Israel. You don't see people, raising their voice. Maybe because they can't, because we know the government is persecuting anyone who expresses support for Palestinians. But I think it's been pretty much in every poll that we have seen. We have seen that support for what's happening in Gaza is pretty broad in Israel. So when you look at the social media posts, I think it just reflects where Israeli society actually stands at this. One thing that comes to my mind about this whole situation is Donald Trump's arrival in a few weeks. There's been already reports that his Israel First cabinet is preparing a package of sanctions against the ICC, against ICC judges and their families as well. So I feel like at this point, if you see more countries taking up a position, like for example Brazil did, or what maybe some other nation, I think Sri Lanka also started to mobilize against these Israeli soldiers. Are they under threat of sanctions now? Are we going to see nations get sanctioned because they are respecting or they are applying the Rome Statute and the Genocide Convention?
Yeah, I think we might. And first, Trump, his tweets regarding Panama and Canada tell us that he doesn't care about anything. And of course, if the matter is about Israel, he will like take actions. And of course, not only him and his cabinet, all of his cabinet is like this. But also to see the bigger picture, we all know that United States is on a downfall, if we can say. Yani now we have Trump. Previously, we had Biden, and before him we had Trump, and before him we had
Obama.
Obama. What happened is every single president that came canceled everything that the previous president did, and we have like I don't know, maybe 12 years of this. So the downfall of US is, and it will happen 100%. And I don't know till when the United States can support Israel. Previously, the Israelis, I think, were smarter because they created balance between the USSR and the USA. And one of them, if one fell, the other country can support Israel. But now, if the United States becomes weaker and weaker, because of course Trump will try to make many things, and the other party will do whatever they can to stop him, and this also will accelerate the downfall of the United States, or not that the downfall, it will be weaker than before. And I don't know till when they can support Israel that much. And I am convinced since I was born that if Israel wants the entity of Israel, if it wants to persist, it should have a strong ally as the United States. And if the United States is like weaker, we don't know what will happen. So we have to wait and see.
I just want to add that, the more the US gets fast and loose with sanctions, okay, just stupid almost with sanctions, the more it incentivizes states and global institutions to, I guess, recalibrate and become less US centric, because there are other options now, right? The China, Russia, India, Indonesia, Africa, like we're seeing like the Sahel states in Africa just walk away because there's another option. Even the Saudis and the Emiratis playing with the Russians, playing with the Chinese because there are legitimate other options.
But a place where Israeli soldiers, feel pretty emboldened to continue to enter is Syria, right? The south of Syria, where we have seen continued encroachment by the Israeli army, continued attacks. The Israeli army at this point controls a large portion of Syria's water sources. Last week, they took control of Al-Matara.
In the Quneitra countryside, which is the largest dam in southern Syria.
Al-Mantara, yes, Al-Mantara.
Seized control of 6 of the most strategic bodies of water in the south.
Yeah, so all of a sudden, it's very interesting in a sad way, honestly, what's happening in Syria, because on the one hand, you have the Israeli army with no opposition whatsoever taking control of Syria's water sources. And they keep talking about this is only they're gonna be in there for the winter. Officially, that's what they say. While you see, all of these Israeli journalists or influencers or whatever already talking about Mount Hermon as if it's part of Israel all of a sudden. And at the same time, you have this diplomatic whirlwind happening in Damascus, in which a Western official after Western official comes in to meet with the former, founder of Al Qaeda, former protege of the founder of ISIS, Ahmad al-Shara, give them their full support, give them, as much legitimacy as possible. Now we're hearing that the U.S. government today, maybe even, would ease some of the restrictions on Syria. They talk about the restrictions of humanitarian aid, not so much lifting of sanctions, but loosening, I guess, the stranglehold that Syria has been under for so long. So it's what is the Syrian, this new interim government? What are they going to have to say in a few weeks, in a few days, when all of a sudden all of Syria's water sources, or maybe just their principal water resources, are completely under Zionist control? Is Israel going to start selling water to
Well,
Syria?
it's not just Israel that's the violator. Turkey has been the greater violator all along the Syrian conflict. Just something to note is that Israel now controls, as of December, controls 30% of Syria's water supply, but it controls 40% of Jordan's. Okay, that Israeli buffer state to the east, because it took control. The Israeli invasion of Syria is in the south of Syria, and abuts Jordan's north, and the Israelis took over the Al Wahda Dam, which is located on the Jordanian border. And that country is the biggest beneficiary of this water supply. But we have written in 2022 and 2023 at the Cradle extensively about Turkey's water grabs. Okay, it's breaking of agreements left, right, and center with neighboring states, with Syria, with Iraq, on the free flow of water. A lot of this has to do with the Euphrates River, and by doing so, by controlling the water, it has actually unleashed natural disasters along the Euphrates basin in both Syria and Iraq, leaving hundreds of thousands of inhabitants in eastern Syria without access to drinking water. This is Turkey, okay? This has been a big problem. The Iraqis have time and time again tried to address their existing water sharing treaties with Turkey, and Turkey just continues to violate these things. It's done, played some dirty tricks by redefining the Euphrates. I can't remember. I think instead of classifying the Tigris and Euphrates rivers as cross-border rivers, which essentially means that international laws for the sharing of river water do not apply. So it's, it literally has cut off water supplies to Iraq and Syria for a good decade and a half or more. The Turks have done huge dam building projects, aiming to construct 24 dams, power plants, etc., on the Euphrates and Tigris, and literally restricting water, essential waters to Syria and Iraq. It's a hostile act. That the control of your rightful water supply is an act of war. Now Israel is doing it on the south.
Nobody will talk about it, because if the Syrian government didn't talk about it, who will talk? Why there will be action? First, if we want to see steps of actions, the new Syrian government must file a complaint in the UN. I don't think they will ever do that. So they are just happy that they took Damascus, and and now Bashar al-Assad is not in Syria. And they don't care about anything, because these people, they don't have loyalty to Syria. They have loyalty to Turkey, and they don't care. They don't care about Hasaka. They don't care about what's happening in the south. They just want Damascus and Aleppo. And I think if they only take
and the
control of these two
resources,
cities, they don't care. Currently, I don't think there's anything that can push Israel outside of Syria, unless if they see that the areas that they control, they don't want, they will retreat. But of course, they took the highest mountain in Syria, in southern Syria. I don't think they will retreat from there. And of course, they will keep some bodies of waters, because we know that in Israel they lack water, and that's why they invaded South Lebanon in the first place in the 70s and in the 80s. If they can take water from Syria, why they should care to negotiate anybody? And moreover, they are waiting for Trump to give them more legitimacy over West Bank and Julan before this happens. So unfortunately, I don't think anything will change, at least in the near future.
Another thing that's been happening in Syria, it's these attacks on the so-called military council. I forget the name that HTS gave their soldiers now. Now they have an official name, by the remnants of the Syrian Arab Army, right? What the Western media likes to call the Sadist militias. In any case, we have been seeing these escalate, right? In the province of Homs at this point, the new administration, I guess, they implemented a sort of a cleanse, right? They are looking for these rebel elements, although I guess they were the rebels, right? This is a very confusing. If you go by Western media, all of this is a very, very confusing terminology. But Karim, what do you know about this? And more than that, what do you think? Do you think we can see some form of resistance groups rise out of Syria? Because I think this is something that Iranian leaders have said, that a resistance is going to develop in Syria, etc. Now we're seeing these attacks, and we're seeing the cleanse, the purge that the HTS is looking to do. Is there any hope to this, or are these just kind of like the last, again, remnants of what used to be the Syrian army?
Can I just say something before
Go
Kenny
ahead.
you go on? This is like not the first time we've said on this podcast that Iranians have said there's going to be resistance in Syria. This is an analysis, okay, that anyone could have made. The fact that we keep saying, it was said by an Iranian, almost suggests to our viewers and anyone reading this information that the Iranians would therefore be behind it. I don't think that's the case at all. In fact, there are Alawi groups in the north, in the west of Syria, who have gone out of their way to say, we're going to resist this. It's nothing to do with Iran. We have no connections with Iran. We don't want people to have us co-opted, even in narrative by Iran, because that's just not the case. This is not, when Iran says this is just an analysis, because you can see Kurdish groups rebelling, you can see Christian groups rebelling, you can see Alawi and Shia groups repelling. You can, by the way, see Sunni, all right, the majority Sunni rebelling. Don't forget Homs, where we started to see some resistance, is the heart of where the so-called insurgency in Syria in 2011 kicked off in Daraa. But Homs, within no time, became the heart of the revolution, okay? So for resistance to be happening in Homs is a really big deal. And, we've been hearing reports, and I think we have a reporter looking into this now. We'll see if we get anything out of it. But that Damascene Sunni are really opposed to the government. These are not so-called Assadists. They, there is a cultural bias that the educated Damascus, capital city dwellers have against the rural Idlibis, okay? And they view these guys, one and all, to be Idlibis, all right? So it's like it's a classist thing. It's a whatever. So even the majority Sunni in Damascus are not pleased with the state of affairs, unless they're hardcore Islamists. And then within these groups, don't forget 35 or 37 groups that launched the operation. There are disagreements. So of course there's going to be resistance, and of course there's nothing to do with Iran. Go ahead, Karim.
Okay, first I want to say, when they say the remnants of the Syrian army, I think it's the same when the United States says that the Ansarullah government is a Houthi-backed Iranian militia. It's just a narrative to portray for the people that nobody will resist the new government, except if they were an Assadist or they were the previous regime, because they don't want to tell the people why these people are resisting the new government, because of all the atrocities and the killings and the beheading they did for the previous years. And the previous years are not long ago. And we're not talking about a party that like ruled for 80 years, and we're talking about what the ancestors did. We are talking about people that are currently in the government and currently meeting officials outside. These people committed crimes. So of course, people don't want them to come and rule them. Yes.
The videos of the justice minister, right? The videos that surfaced a couple of days ago.
Yeah, there's many of them, and of course, in the army, we know now that there's people. We talked about it previously. There's people from China's Uyghur. There's people from Jordan. There's people from all over the world, and they are inside the army. That's insane. So I was saying, and for instance, people to understand, in Syria we have the Syrian coast, and the majority are not Sunnis. So all of these people are afraid, and they will start resisting these groups. And of course, in the south, Shami was talking about the Druze community in the south, and we have the Kurdish groups in the east. And Syria is one of the oldest countries in the world, and Damascus is one of the oldest cities in the world. And all of like, if we can say, religions, and of also like sects of religions occurred during the lifetime of Syria. And we have like, this mountain is Christian, this mountain is Alawi, this mountain is whatever. So all of these people don't feel comfortable with the new government, because they know what they will do. And the government didn't lie. They said, we will hunt people that supported the regime. They said it. And they said also, we will hunt the journalists that supported the regime. And they said the only media that people will see in Syria are the journalists that defected from the regime in 2011. And even if people defected later on, they will not listen to them. So that's what's happening in Syria. And I think it's wrong to say these are remnants of the Syrian army. And that's what the narrative that the West and Al Jazeera are pushing.
I almost think that, whatever the Western narrative will be, and as you said, Karim, rightfully, they will try to say, oh, these are Iran-backed groups, or these are Assadist groups. The fact is, in these towns and villages and city in Syria, Syrian citizens are going to know the real story, okay? They're not going to be looking to Western media to get the story clarified for them, because they're the ones feeling the anxiety. They're the ones feeling the pressure. They know in Homs, these are Sunni who are, are fighting against, who've launched some kind of rebellion or resistance against the authorities. The ones in Tartus or Latakia know that this is, from watching videos of Alawi men being ordered to bark like dogs or bray like donkeys, okay, to humiliate them and emasculate them by these Islamist, militants. I mean, one of the things is the amount of videos we're now seeing of efforts to humiliate, torture, beat up, and kill regular citizens by militant groups affiliated with the government are so numerous compared to any videos you saw in 2011 of the Assad government forces beating up, hurting, torturing, or killing Syrians. You always heard those stories. You never saw them. You didn't have video clips like this. Now, every day we have video clips of the new Syrian regime, government, whatever, but groups affiliated with them absolutely
harassing, violating people's rights, etc.
Absolutely. I mean, killing, executing,
Exactly.
point blank. So I don't know. Like, is Jolani and co hanging their hats on their Western and Arab relations, like sugarcoating everything and smoothing the way for them forward? Because that's not going to be the experience of the average Syrian citizen. That's who they have to govern. Not the American Secretary of State, the Saudi foreign minister, the Iraqi intelligence, the Turkish intelligence minister. Those are not their constituents.